So welcome. Thanks for being here, Miss Jones. Miss Jones, you are the owner and principal consultant of Prosa Consulting. You've worked for
That's
20
correct.
years, 20 years in environmental health and safety consulting. You worked in for the government. You've achieved a number of certifications, and you're working to promote environmental health and safety among businesses. So, with no further ado, let's get right, right away beginning. Tell us about yourself, if you would like to share about your personal background, where you grew up, and things.
Okay. I'm a native Texan, um, and I've never lived anywhere else. I was born in Dallas, but grew up about 2 hours to the east in East Texas, Henderson, which is my
Hmm.
mom's home.
Okay.
It's mostly rural out there, and so you kind of had to find things to do. And so we spent a lot of time outside, especially during the summertime. I can remember working in the garden with my grandparents and playing until the street lights came on. And I was always really curious as a child about, the natural world and how things worked and how things grew and all of that stuff. So I naturally gravitated to science and math. I'm the oldest of 5 kids, and I'm a preacher's daughter. So, we were taught to be honest and not to judge people and to be helpful whenever possible. And that was mirrored in all of our role models. So, from
Right
my
on.
parents to my grandparents, great grandparents, the neighborhood that we grew up in, the whole 9 yards. And so I grew up knowing I like math and science and I want to help people. So that was about all that I knew. So when it started thinking about, okay, what do I want to do, with the rest of my life, I was a complete and total mess. And so I didn't know. I changed so many times, it's not even funny. I wanted to be a superhero, then I wanted to be a firefighter, wanted to be an astronaut, wanted to be an astronomer, thought about being a vocal recording artist for a minute because I do like to sing, and finally settled on I want to be a medical doctor. And I was in the 7th grade when this happened. And my mother, who was a nurse, said, "No, you don't want to do that." And I asked her why not. She said, "Because you will get bored. And I know you, kid, you will get bored. So why don't you think about environmental science?" And so my mother chose my profession for me. And 3 years later, when I graduated, or I didn't graduate 3 years early, but I went to college 3 years after that. So went to college 2 years early. And decided, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to study environmental science. And did that, came home after that for 5.5 years after I finished my bachelor's degree because I had some health problems in college and it was kind of difficult for me with my thyroid condition trying to manage everything. But I came home
Hmm.
and was home, spent time with my grandmother before she passed away, and then decided I wanted to pursue a master's degree in business. So while I was working on my master's degree, I taught school.
Hmm.
And my grandmother, who the one that's still alive today, she said that whole time was a blur. And she said, "I don't know how you did it. You worked full time, you were in school full time, and you had 3 kids in tow." Because my 3 youngest siblings, there's quite a bit in age gap. So
Ah,
I was co-parenting with my parents while I was working on my master's degree and teaching school. And shortly after I finished that, I left and came back to Dallas Fort Worth area, and I've been here ever since. And I started
okay.
working for one of the municipal governments here.
Okay. So that's kind of interesting. Out of curiosity, what the age group did you teach? You taught science probably, but what age?
Mostly middle school. So
Middle
it
school.
was,
Okay.
6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So mostly middle school. And but people always ask me, like, what was your favorite, kind of grade to teach? And so because I did sub some, and I loved 3rd grade. And it's so because 8-year-olds are like the perfect age. They are old enough to do a lot of things for themselves, but they're still young enough to where, they still love you and they still listen to you. They still, will give you hugs and, listen to you and stuff. And so that's like my favorite age of kid is 8.
Okay. Okay. That must have been a challenge though, to be working, teaching, and then also getting your master. Did you do that like virtually or in the evenings, or how'd that work?
I did it in the evenings, and it
Okay.
it was difficult. I mean, we had, classes every Thursday for 4 hours from 6
Mhm.
to 10, and usually had, a study group one other day of the work week.
Mm.
And so but, when you're working full time and, with us having 3 kids at home, it was difficult to find time to
Mhm.
study, to, do all of that stuff, and, I was during that time, I was literally going to bed at like 9:30, 10 o'clock. I remember one of my girlfriends from college, she got engaged and she called one night and I didn't pick up the phone. So she called my mom and she told my mom what was happening. And she says, I know that Denise is asleep. And my mom said, oh no, she will want to be woken up for this. And so my mom came and woke me up to tell me that. So it was difficult, but like I said, it went by in a blur. And if I had to do it again, I don't know how I would do it, but
Mhm.
I did it.
Okay. No, congratulations. I give
So
you a lot of credit. It's not easy to do.
thank
So so you transition. You have a lot of experience. So you transition from working with the government, right? Municipal government to having your
you.
own firm. So can you tell us about that journey and how you made that decision?
Well, I worked in municipal government for about 4 years, and I absolutely loved that time. I loved the people that I worked with. I still say that's the greatest group of people that I ever, worked with.
Mhm.
But I was a little pigeonholed when I was working in municipal government because in the section that I was in, all we did was stormwater management. And, I wanted to do more with environmental than just stormwater management. And so after about 4 years, I knew that it was time for me to move on to something where I could, stretch myself a little bit. And so a an individual took a chance on me at a lime manufacturer. This individual is, I consider him a friend and a mentor, and he's actually still, we still work together today. And he took a chance on me because I didn't know anything about lime manufacturing. Okay. And basically had stormwater experience, a little bit of experience working in an environmental lab, but like didn't know anything. And but he took a chance on me and trusted me and coached me. And I learned so much during that time, working for the lime manufacturer. So much so that, I applied what I learned. And, within a few years, I was managing corporate wide projects, for compliance on environmental and health and safety. And so it was a really, really exciting, good growth opportunity for me. As I got towards the end of my time there,
Mhm.
I knew that I wanted to do something else. Okay. So, not to say that I'd learned everything because I don't, I do not believe that anybody can know everything. But, I had learned a significant amount and I was really ready to kind of move on to my next thing because I wanted to get back to, of course, helping people because that was, my main driver. And it was kind of like, okay, well, I'm helping this company and I'm helping, the people that I work with, but beyond that, I really want to help, more. And so then something happened. Unfortunately, my brother-in-law passed away. And I was heartbroken because I had to watch my sister and my, at the time, 4-year old nephew, go through this, life altering experience.
Yeah.
And I made the decision, what? It Life is too short for me not to chase my dreams and do what I want to do. And so I quit. I just no plan, no anything.
Ah.
I just quit. In fact, I realized what you call it, 2 weeks later, my mom and I had a trip planned to go to Mexico. And while we were in Mexico, we went on this cruise excursion. And one of the hosts asked, is anybody selling anybody any or celebrating anything? And I remember saying, yeah, I left my job. And everybody just applauded and screamed and everything. And so I just, I was just like, you know what? I want to do something different. And so I just decided I'm going to do something different. And for about 5 months, I was just a housewife. And I was, kind of crawling the walls because it's like, okay, my husband's working, I'm, taking care of house, but really don't, have a lot to do. Well, that same individual that took a chance on me, that hired me in a lab manufacturing company, he'd been calling and checking in. What are you going to do? What's your next step? I don't know. I'm just chilling right now. And finally, that November of 2017, he called again, and I finally said, "Okay, Mark, if you have a project for me, I'll do it." So, so that was kind of how uh, Porsa Consulting kind of birthed itself out of that. So I wasn't really looking for it. In fact, looking back on it now, one of my good girlfriends, she said, I always knew you'd be a business owner. And I never even, that had never even entered my mind. And but I guess that was what was meant to be, because that's what happened.
Okay. No, that sounds pretty interesting. And so then you're working with small businesses now. That's like your focus, right? Right?
That is my focus. I try to target small businesses and work with them.
Okay.
Like I said, really driven to help people.
Hmm.
And, a lot of small businesses I found that, they have less resources than the larger entities.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times, they may not be aware of their requirements. They need more support, that sort of thing. And so, and I believe that, the environment and workers should always be protected. It doesn't matter what size your organization is. So, I target small businesses because I feel like they're the ones that, need my help the most.
Okay. So
So,
I guess that's an area of focus, not like your main focus, an area of focus. And
yeah, it's
so
just kind of an area of focus.
okay, an area of focus. And then the inspiration for that is because you feel they need more support in this area, right?
Exactly.
Okay, okay. And then, what are some of the main challenges that not that you face, but that, your clients face that uh, they could use some support with? Do you find?
Mhm. Well, I mean, it runs the gamut because every business is different, and so I've worked on worked with clients that have had air permitting issues. I've worked with clients that had no health and safety system at all. I've worked with clients that might have just needed pieces of in certain areas of getting back to my roots. I've done some work with stormwater and that sort of thing. So probably the most challenging part though, and this was a previous client, is around air permitting. And so because that tends to be really extensive, a lot of times there's a lot of convoluted regulations involved. And so, and if you're a small entity, and you don't have EHS staff in house, especially, you're gonna, want to, you're gonna seek help. You're gonna need help to do all of the things that you may need with a complex, air permit. So that that's just kind of one example, but normally it's just normal kind of compliance issues. I do a lot, or compliance task actually. I do a lot of compliance reporting for entities, and do program development as well. So those are kind of my areas of focus. I also do a lot of analysis, EHS analysis, and so my concentration for my master's degree was finance. So I'm kind of an Excel spreadsheet can kind of be my kid, can be my child. So I'm kind of, really comfortable with that. So I tend to do a lot of analysis for people and
I
putting
see.
together spreadsheets and things of that nature too.
Okay, okay. And then in this area, environmental regulations, what would you say are some trends that you're seeing, or things to be looking for in that you see potentially?
Well, on the environmental side, one of the big pushes right now is increased regulation around the per and polyfluoroalkyls substances, or PFAS. And so, these are really kind of nasty chemicals that have been found in almost everything. And they can have some really serious health effects, from developmental delays in kids to cancer to
Hmm.
hormonal disruption, a lot of different things. And so I definitely see there's going to be increased regulation around that. um the other thing that I feel like is coming down the pipeline is there's been kind of an increased push towards sustainability, and for companies to actually do things to try to address climate change and that sort of thing. And so I think that we will eventually see regulation around that kind of um, around carbon emissions more and that sort of thing in industry.
Okay.
And then, of course, environmental justice is also a big thing that's going on right now for the, Biden White House. And so I also, if that continues, because that's more of a public policy thing. And so if they continue in the White House past, next January, I think that will continue to be a big push to where they're going to want to make sure that those historically marginalized communities are not really bearing the biggest burden when it comes to environmental pollution. So those are
Mhm.
kind of the areas that I, kind of targeted, or that I kind of see that people need to, kind of watch out for. And then if we're talking about health and safety, they've got regulations in development or about to be released for public comment around like HAZCOM. They've got a new emergency response standard that they're looking at, and then also heat and cold stress. So those would be things that businesses would want to look into and kind of start getting prepared for.
Okay. Okay. And then you've been at this for a little while. So can you share some any success stories that you've encountered with clients that have utilized your services for their EHS?
Well, I guess the one success story that I would share, and I would call this like a, which one call it the EHS hero, I guess. This would be a, best case scenario is I did some work for a medical clinic. It's been almost a couple of years ago now. And I was helping them. I drafted and worked with them to get in place some health and safety practices that they were going to put in a larger manual. And to come to find out that piece that I wrote in that manual, they, as the business grew and they got more clinics, they just continued to duplicate that as they opened new clinics. And so instead of going from a clinic that had nothing, they started having clinics that on day one had something in place for health and safety. And so it was definitely, a win-win for that client. And it was something that I was really proud of. And so, so I, a lot of times in EHS, I catch clients after they've gotten in trouble. And so
Yeah.
that was an example where I didn't catch a client in trouble. They were being proactive and it really worked out.
Okay. Okay. So you helped them with draft a manual for their EHS practices, and that was you able to pass that on. Okay. So then the ones that are in
Exactly.
trouble, so I kind of see that a small business getting in trouble and needing some support. So then like how do they find you? Like once they do get in trouble, how do they know about you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter.
Okay.
I also have a website, so www.porsaconsulting.com. But you can always, like I said, I'm on LinkedIn, or via the website. They can contact me through the contact us page and, get a hold of me. I really try to tailor what I do to the business's needs. So I've got several offerings out there that, people can take advantage of.
Okay, okay. And businesses, sometimes they have periods of, where it's booming. Sometimes businesses sometimes can be struggling. So, environmental, and health and safety issues could be costly to them if there's any kind of hazards and things. At the same time, they want to make sure their business is profitable. So how do you help them to compromise, you know, maintaining appropriate practices and legal codes, but at the same time, making sure their business is not, it continues to be profitable.
Mhm. Well, EHS is one of those things that it lends itself to flexibility. Okay. So for instance, in some regulations, it is very prescriptive what you have to do, but in others, it's you have to address this, and then the how is kind of on you. You get to construct your program the way you need to make it work and to fit for you. And
Mm,
so so there's always some customization that goes on. And for me, I always try to work with the client and within the client's budget. And so of what they have. Now, having said that, I mean, you're going to invest in environmental health and safety. Okay. And that's what I always tell people is it's an investment. It's an investment in your business. So, so you have to look at it that way. And when I say it's an investment, I really mean that. You can save money, less fines, less remediation actions, injury costs. If you've got good safety record, good environmental record, you can reduce your premiums. They've got statistics out there showing that if you have a good health and safety program in your business, that morale is better. So you're looking at, your ability to attract and retain talent will be better. And then also, your business reputation. And once you lose that, it's hard to get trust back. And so, if you're doing what you need to do and people see that you're a responsible business, that you are actually taking care of your workers, you're trying to do what's right for the environment, you know, consumers reward those sorts of things. They're actually out there looking for those things. So for as much as people, kind of EHS has got a bad name because, it's not revenue generating. Okay, it may not, and sometimes it can be revenue generating, but even though it's not revenue generating, that doesn't mean that it can't be cost saving. And so that's what I always try to, express to my clients if that's an issue.
Okay,
So
okay. So let's just say someone out there is interested. So you gave some social media ways to contact you. Let's just say they contact you. How does that intake process work? Do they meet with you on the phone first, or what's the process that works for potential businesses working with you?
So most of the time there is an initial phone call. And it's usually I try to keep it to around 30 minutes.
Mhm.
And we'll, have some discussion of kind of, what they're contacting me for. Do you have an issue? Are you just thinking about doing an enhancement? Is this, one item that we need to address, one, area, or do you need a whole program? So we kind of scope out that sort of thing. And then depending on what the client needs, I may offer them just some ongoing, consulting hours just to kind of strategize to help them, kind of figure out what it is that they want to do.
Mhm.
I also have an online store where people, if they want to DIY it, they can go and, buy some of, templates, procedures, that sort of thing, and customize those in house to help save costs if that's, an option for them and they feel comfortable doing that. Then I also have kind of a coaching program that I do. And it's more tailored towards, smaller businesses that may not have as stringent and complex requirements, where I, over a period of weeks will coach them as they build out their program or that sort of thing, and give them that sort of support, reviewer support, suggestions, and even drafting things if necessary that I need to for them. And then but most of my clients tend to be kind of traditional deliverable. And so after that first initial meeting and we kind of figure out what it is that they need to address, I would prepare kind of a scope of work for them and just say, okay, well, based on what we discussed, we're going to do this, 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 and this is how much it's going to cost. And those things could last, I could work on a project for a couple of weeks with the client or years, because I have had some clients where it's been, years with, a little downtime in between. And so yeah, so it really depends on what the client needs in that moment. And a lot of times it's going to be dictated by, okay, are you in trouble or are you being proactive?
Okay, no, so it sounds like you um, have an intake process where you kind of like go over what their needs are and what their kind of like budget is. Then you have some options based upon their needs and budget as to where, avenues they can take and how involved that, they would like for you to get involved or they have, for your resources for.
Exactly.
Sounds pretty good.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. And then what final message do you have for those out there that have not gotten someone like yourself to get on board with their EHS issues?
Well, I would tell everybody that, EHS is not a luxury. Okay. It really is not. It's essential. Okay. It doesn't matter what your work environment is, you're going to have hazards. Okay. It doesn't matter what operation you're running, you're going to have environmental impact. And, we tend to think about these things, as we're going through our everyday lives, it's just kind of background noise until something happens. The worst happens, and then all of a sudden you're scrambling and you're trying to figure out what to do. And so what I would tell people is that, if you do not have, at least an environmental consultant that you can pick up the phone and call right now, find one. Or health and safety, same thing. Find one.
Okay.
Especially if you do not have in-house staff, because like I said, anything can happen. I think that we live in la la land sometimes, and people don't realize that, even if you're not on a programmed inspection schedule with OSHA or EPA, anybody can call and make a complaint and they can show up. If you're having inspections by other regulators, they can refer you and they can show up, or your state regulator. So, so just because, you are considered a low hazard, or you don't have a lot of requirements, that doesn't mean that they can't, come for an inspection at any time and potentially find violations. So
Yes, and you work with clients, across the country, correct? Not just in one specific location.
yes.
You were able to
Yes, and so I work with clients across the U.S., and so I've worked in several states, especially if it's like health and safety, and so because for the most part those standards are kind of the same across the U.S.
Mhm.
When you start into a little environmental, it's a little more it's a little more complex, because usually the state agency is the regulator. And so there are definitely certain states in the US that I feel more comfortable working in than others. And
I
so
see. I see.
Texas, Missouri, Alabama. So
Yeah. Cool, cool. So, and I'll definitely, put your social media links and the contact information that you gave me on LinkedIn and the different videos that we make on different platforms. But the question that I have is,
sound
what's the best way for people or the preferred way you want people to reach you?
the preferred way that I want people to reach me would probably be for you to go on the website and send me a message through the contact us. And so if you're struggling, you want to do that, you can do that. Or better yet, I'm set up on Calendly. I can give you the Calendly link, and people can just schedule a discovery call and fill out a little information to give me just a little background to talk to them, and we'll schedule time to talk.
Okay, this has been very helpful, very informative. I appreciate your time, Denise.
Thank you, Luis. It was wonderful. It was a pleasure. And you made my first podcast successful and easy. So I really appreciate that.